The presentation, it says, "We're from dementia." So as Catholics, we know that our root language or our language of origin is normally the Latin. And most words derive their meaning from Latin. So when we go to the etymology of the word, "de" means out of, and "mens" means mind. So dementia, simply put, etymologically means out of your mind. So the definition of dementia, as it has been agreed by English scholars and research, has to do with a syndrome involving cognitive decline beyond normal aging, affecting memory, thinking, and behavior. What this means is that as we grow, there is a certain rate of cognitive decline. When we talk about cognitive decline, what we are saying is that as you grow, your ability to think, remember, and do things slow down. They come down. And I believe we all know that as a common practice. But when we look at dementia, the rate is faster. It's very fast. So the rate of decline in dementia is so fast. And when you look at the image on the screen, you see a brain and you see AD. The brain is a normal brain. The AD is somebody who is suffering from dementia. So this also accounts for the reason why their cognitive decline is very fast. So when you look at this slide, we are trying to compare characteristics between a normal brain and a brain that is suffering from dementia. So we start from the brain size, as I've already illustrated. The normal brain is different in size as compared to that of the person suffering from dementia. Then we talk about the brain component. We look at something we call neurons. So neurons are the means through which the brain communicates. So for your brain to be able to relay information, for example, I am talking and you are listening, there is a part of your brain responsible for receiving information. There is a part of your brain responsible for processing information you have received. And there is a part of your brain that is responsible for understanding the information you have received. And all this are made possible because of the neurons we have in our system. So now, if you look at neuron loss, in a normal brain, the neuron loss is minimal. It doesn't go too frequent. But when you look at somebody suffering from dementia, it is very significant. The neurons die a lot. Again, explaining why there are so many gaps in the brain of somebody suffering from dementia. Now, let me jump to some of them. So we have judgment and reasoning. So with judgment and reasoning, we are told in the African society that the elders have a lot of wisdom. That is because they are able to recount most of their experiences and communicate it to us. So in a normal aging adult, judgment is mostly intact and they can give you counsel when you need it. But when you come to somebody who is suffering from dementia, we see that there is poor decision making. And that is also as a result of the brain size and the brain chemistry. Next slide. When we talk about the prevalence, how frequent or how recurring is dementia in our world today? The World Health Organization tells us that currently, or as of 2019, 57.4 million people globally are suffering from dementia. And this number is projected to reach 152 million by 2050. And one reason that is accounting for this projected numbers is that the aging population in our world is rising. So there are so many growing people in our society today as compared to the days of old. So there are types of dementia. I'll run through them quickly. The most famous type of dementia is what we call the Alzheimer's disease. The Alzheimer's disease currently takes about 60 to 70% of all cases of dementia that we see. And followed by the vascular dementia, that takes 30%. We have the Lewy body dementia, the frontotemporal dementia. Now, to throw light on some of the types of dementia, with the first one, the Alzheimer's, we are told that there are some things called amyloid plaques and tau tangles. Now what happens is that in the brain, some of the neurons coil themselves together. And when they call themselves together, it prevents them from doing the functions that they are supposed to do. And it reduces the nutrients they get. It's like they accidentally call themselves together. So when it happens like that, the next thing is that they are going to die. So when they are dying like that, the brain begins to shrink. And the more the brain shrinks, the more the spaces begin to appear, and the more cognitive function begins to go down. When we look at vascular dementia, it's normally caused by accidents. For example, a stroke or a burst in the brain, maybe a bleeding in the brain and all those things. So the vascular one is normally accident related. So when someone has an accident and there is head-on collision, there's a possibility that a person might injure some of the person's brain areas. And when that happens, it may lead you to vascular dementia. The Lewy bodies are special kinds of proteins that are not needed in the brain, but they find themselves in the brain, and then they cause cognitive decline from there. Frontotemporal dementia is a kind of dementia that affects the frontal lobe, the frontal part of the brain, that is this region, and then the temporal part, which is the side. Now, the frontal lobes are responsible for thinking, processing, problem-solving abilities. That is what the frontal lobe does. And the temporal lobes are responsible for hearing. So now, if we say frontotemporal dementia, we are looking at a kind of cognitive decline that is hitting the frontal and then the temporal areas of the brain. Now, how will I know that I am nearing dementia? One of the significant things you note is there is a memory loss, which is very sharp. So let's say 5 years ago, you were able to say 212 up to 212, 24. But fast forward, you can't even remember how to say 212. That is something very basic. So there has been a sharp decline in your cognition. So you need to start thinking about, how did I get here? Another one is communication difficulties. So you have been communicating well all your life. All of a sudden, you can't remember words. You cannot put words together. Then we can see that something is happening and we can get a check. Disorientation and confusion. There is also difficulty with complex tasks. We have visuospatial issues. You are seeing all right. You cannot walk through spaces. All these things become issues when you are there. There is poor coordination and movement. And then there is hallucination and paranoia. When we talk about hallucination, you begin to see things and hear things. So you are not in touch with reality, basically. You are just there, and then you hear your name, you hear things. And when we go to paranoia, you have this weird feeling that somebody is out there to harm you. And all these things are not real. They are just things that are in your mind. So these are some of the signs that somebody is nearing dementia. So this is a neuron. The one to the right is a neuron, a healthy neuron. So you see that the neuron has a body and then it has the end part. But when you look at the one down, you see that it has 10 bluish. And that is a dying neuron. Now the plaques, the tangles I was talking about is what is down there. That's the plaques and the tangles. So these things are not necessarily needed in the brain, but they find themselves there one way or the other. And this was what causes dementia. So you realize that the healthy brain is quite whole. But when you go to the severe AD brain, you see that there is a hole in it. We call that the brain ventricle. The ventricle is not as big as that. There are small passages that some brain fluids flow through. But in the brain of somebody suffering from dementia, you see bigger. You see where the Keza is? Yeah, around that area. There is a brain part we call the hippocampus. The hippocampus is the site that consolidates memory. So when you learn anything new, it is your hippocampus that makes you understand and store what you have learned. And that place is also significantly impaired in dementia. So that is why the person is not able to process, the person is not able to recall, the person is not able to do a lot of things. So now we look at our environment. We are human beings programmed by nature, and our environment also affects us. So genetically, those were the causes of dementia. Now we are looking at environmental causes. We are told that air pollution, nitrogen dioxide, is a major contributor to dementia. So the pollutants that are present in nitrogen dioxide is not friendly to the brain. So the more you inhale such chemicals, the more you are putting your brain at risk for a brain infection, not only dementia. Now we look at socio-economic factors. We see limited healthcare access. We see education. We see poverty. When poverty comes your way, you don't eat well because there is no money to eat well. There is a way we are all supposed to eat if we want to have a healthy lifestyle. But poverty will restrict you. And so some of the nourishments the brain demands, you will not be getting it. And then we have limited health care. Normally, we are supposed to go for checkups regularly, but we are not able to do that because of money issues. We also have infections like cerebral malaria that happens to children at birth. It also complicates the brain chemistry. And then urbanization, lifestyle shifts, and what happens in the city. You wake up at very early in the morning, you have to go to work, and all the hassles therein. It also stresses us. And then lifestyles away from dementia. What can I do to help myself? What can I do to protect my brain so I don't get dementia? When you go to the right, you see a beautiful food. Can we see the food? Yes. So this is some nice vegetable with beans and so many things in there. This is what we call the Mediterranean dish. So they normally eat food that contains a lot of vegetables and less fatty stuff. And this is the kind of food the brain loves. So the more you eat some of these things, the more you empower your brain. The other things are exercise, having exercises. I have a 77-year-old woman at home. And this woman is always on her phone doing crossword puzzles. And she can be on it, she'll be on it. So everything, what she does is, either she's watching Lumen Christi or she's doing crossword puzzles. And the trick is, the more you are engaging your brains, the more the brain is rewiring. So anything that would come with a decline, your brain is going to overcome it. So that is also a suggestion to the elderly ones here. If you want to start doing crossword puzzles, it will greatly affect your brain. But the bottom line is, keep yourself engaged. There are people who can still read the Bible at this age. It is good for your brain. Don't stop. Continue doing it, and it will keep your brain in check. Also, we have regular checkups. We have community engagements, even like coming to church. Once a week, you come to church, your brain is triggered. You are fed by the word. The Eucharist is also here to nourish us as well. And we have planning ahead. If you don't want to forget stuff, you can note stuff down. So you put things on paper and then you refer to it. It also helps empower your brain.